you touched on it nicely earlier with your old job, obviously in the bank, accounting, finance, all those sort of aspects. How does the difference between in a bank, like you said, the jobs are the same yet so different? And I kind of, when I was writing down notes for this, I didn't really know how to put it into words of what to ask you, but I was kind of thinking about the public eye aspect of the football that you kind of touched on. Is you're a job that's so under scrutiny when people know so little about what actually goes on. Like you said, people see 11 boys running around the park and a bunch of boys warming up on the sides and go, this is the be all and end all of this business. And then actually, like you said, there's so many different guys working behind the scenes to make stuff goes on. What is the key sort of different aspects of it? Like, what are the noticeable differences between the new role and the older roles you've worked in?
I think the key thing is that you're so inextricably linked to the fan base, and their attitudes and their responses and their emotions around the club that, that's there all the time. In a bank, frankly, unless you do something terribly wrong, it's hard to get passionate about, as a customer of a bank, Believe it or not, there are people who tried to tell us over the years that, banking should be exciting, banking should be, frankly, I used to say banking should be totally boring. It's like, it should be like the engine of a Mercedes. It just purrs along and you shouldn't have to trouble yourself with it. That football or any sport that people care about and support, I think that just brings such a different aspect to it. Everybody's got opinions. They're not slow to voice those opinions as well. And social media now has become such a driver of things. So I think that's the main difference, is that, everybody's trying to give you advice from the outside, and they expect things to happen yesterday, because they think, because they play FIFA Football Manager, that they're qualified to be able to advise on such things. And a football club like St Mirren, we don't have a big team of people behind the scenes. Everything's geared towards getting the team on the park, and so getting things done that are complicated or changes. Last year we changed our ticketing system, and that was a massive exercise for us to do that. And people forget that running a project like that is actually takes a big chunk of the team's time behind the scenes. So and even just launching the season tickets and the pricing for the following year, all these things that they're quite intensive at the time, because it's very much in the public eye if you don't get it right. And pleasingly this year, the season ticket exercise has gone really well. And, although we've had to put prices up, I think we've explained it well as to why we've had to do that, because we held prices right through all the COVID time when people were essentially buying tickets and not getting to see games. So obviously through that period, we held prices. And we provided free streaming of the games instead. Well, when I say free, that was at no additional cost, if you like.
Yeah, the ticket was for the stream. The ticket was for
absolutely.
The stream.
So this year, because of inflation, across the board, we always had to increase prices. And normally, I think a 10% increase would be horrendous, for people to accept, but because it was, that was kind of making up for 3 years. It's landed pretty well, I think, and people seem to be, think it's reasonable. So yeah, I think, to go back to your question, the big thing is this: just everything is under scrutiny all the time. Everything you publish, everything you do, the experience of the fans at every single game is up there for comment, and they certainly are not slow to give you feedback, for sure.
That's good. I know I work in marketing, and I know a lot of people crave real-time data, so there's probably not a better subject than that, than a crowd full of people that are going either this is brilliant or this needs to change.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you for being so candid about that as well. I didn't even plan to mention the tickets, but thank you for being so open with that. I think the fans will really appreciate you taking the time to actually say we're aware we increased it, but we think it's fair. And obviously, nobody ever likes to pay more money, but it does become a point where things have to go up. So thank you for being so honest to say that on the pod. I know a lot of people would have shied away from something like that. So we've spoken about you as the chairman. We've spoken about the duties as the chairman. I kind of want to talk about what makes football so unique itself. We've spoken a lot about what the club's been, what the club's done. I want to talk about what the club, the business of the club is, football. So what for you makes football so unique when we compare it to other sports?
For me, it's the sport I was drawn to first of all. So, I think I've always been a fan, and my father has. So I think, it's probably kind of handed down from my dad in terms of interest in football. I just find it's amazing. You go to a game and you're totally sucked into what's happening on the pitch. I can feel myself almost kicking the ball at times, It's just, it's so immersive, the experience. And I think, football has always been the kind of sport of the working man, if you like, or the working, females obviously as well. And I think it's a subject of conversation when you meet up with your mates and you're talking about the games, or meet up with your family. It just draws you in. It's quite hard to actually explain, but I don't think there's anything else that really makes my heart race, in terms of something I would watch on TV or anything like that, as much as football. I played a bit of rugby at school, and I enjoy watching Scotland games, but I have to be honest, I don't feel quite as passionate as I do about football. And I think it's the speed of the game, the skill, the unexpected can happen at any moment in a football match. And it's the controversy aspects and the opinions and the debate, both during and after the game. It adds to the whole thing, So it's, I absolutely love it, as you can tell from the description. It's my favourite sport by a long chalk.
Well, like you said there, you love it, and it has clearly come through. Now, I've just thought of a nice, really quick question that I'm going to ask you. Would you rather Scotland win the World Cup, which is very possible if the game on Wednesday and Saturday go well, or St Mirren win the SPFL?
It would undoubtedly be St Mirren winning the SPFL.
Yeah.
Mainly because it's never happened before. I know Scotland never won the World Cup, but it would just be incredible. Highly unlikely, I accept. But I've followed St Mirren into Europe, so anything's possible. Anything's possible. And you look at down south, Leicester City winning the English Premiership. I think breaking the Scottish kind of duopoly of Rangers and Celtic is a bit more challenging right enough. Just in terms of finance, they have such an inbuilt advantage. But we always hope. And what would be even better would be both things happening in the same year, Sam. Scotland winning the World Cup and St Mirren winning the league. I'd die a happy man at that stage.
I think I'd be dead. That's for sure. I wouldn't be at work.
It would be some party. Sure. Yeah. No, that's for sure. Yeah. I think that would be the party to beat all parties. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that would be a day. How do you think Wednesday's going to go? Do you think the boys have got a good chance? I'm just going to talk football now. You've started me talking about football. I'm not even bothered. I forget the podcast's on.
Yeah, no, I think they have a good chance on Wednesday. I really admire Steve Clarke and the way he's set the team up, the way he's made them almost like a kind of club team atmosphere. He seems to have created a real sense of team effort. And having spoken to Steve when he's an excellent man player, so he comes along to games at Paisley, reasonably regularly. and I've spoken to him, and he's a really interesting guy. You know, he's very, very straightforward, but very firm in his views. You know, he really knows his own mind, as you can imagine. And you know, I think he's done a really good job. So I know that probably the whole world will want Ukraine to win, just because of the situation in their country, which is just dreadful. But you know, I'm a Scotsman, and I want Scotland to beat them. So I make no apology for that on Wednesday, and I'm hoping we do scrape through. I think it'll be a very tight game. I can't see, you know, we've played them relatively recently, and there's never been that much in the games. So I think it'll be a tight one, probably a one goal either way.
I completely agree with your sentiment. I think what's happening is dreadful, but there is 90 minutes on Wednesday, unfortunately, when I do want Scotland to win. I'll tell you a story. I'm part of this. Will go out later, so this will be fun when my boss sees this, because we've got our company's technically an English company, so we're the only office in Edinburgh. The other three are Manchester, London, Bournemouth, and we had like a big group call last week, and they were talking about the Scotland qualifier, and they were just like, "Oh, surely you've got to let Ukraine win." And one of the other Scottish boys piped up. He was like, "No, they've had Eurovision. We're having this one. That's it."
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And you know, if it was England, there's no way the English would want to lie down to Ukraine either. And it almost feels unfortunate. The time in the game is really unfortunate, but hopefully maybe gives their people a kind of relief from some of the awful stuff that's going on in the country, and we can still win.
Yeah. So we're getting towards the very end. We've spoken about what St Mirren did, what you're doing right now. What's the future looking like for St Mirren? What are your aims as the sort of, I know you're not the main be-all, head-all Roman Abramovich, but what's your sort of direction you're looking to push the club?
Well, I mean, our strategy is very much about community, about really making the club the heart of the Paisley community. I mean, Paisley is the biggest town in Scotland, almost 100,000 population, so it's a big place. And you know, the catchment area for the club is large. So for me, it's about us really being a community club, as really representing the fans' voices and what we do and the way we go about things. And we're doing a consultation exercise with the fans, the first big consultation exercise that we've ever done, asking their views on how we organise ourselves for Celtic and Rangers games next season, whether we give, you know, how many seats basically we give them, because that's a big topic of debate.
I know my answer.
So we're really trying to engage the fans, and we'll do more and more of that going forward to try and make sure that the club's run in a way that they feel proud of the club, and it represents the fan base and their values and so forth. The other thing is we're quite famous for producing good quality young players, and so over the years, well, you look at the Scotland squad, there's John McGinn, Kenny McLean, you know, who came through St Mirren, and we've produced a lot of good players over the years. Maybe haven't quite got as big transfer fees for them as we would have liked. So that's an area where we're going to try and do better, because that then generates more income, obviously, for reinvestment in the team. So, you know, really getting the academy pushing players through, and we've got you know, the current under-17 captain is on our books, Dylan Reid, as well. So we've got some really good youngsters coming through. So again, integrating those into the team and giving them opportunity to flourish, and hopefully, I mean, we realise our position in the football ecosystem. They won't stay with us once they get to a certain level, and they'll move on to a bigger side. But you know, we want to be famous for producing youngsters that go into great things, like John McGinn currently, and in the past, people like Frank McAvenny and Frank McGarvey, and you know, we've produced a lot of great players over the years. Gordon McQueen going further back, you know, so there's a great history there and tradition of that, and that's an area we're really focusing on to try and make sure that we are maximising the investment we make in our academy for that. So yeah, it's all about community, and also and we're seeing a lot more females, coming to games, which is great. And we built a platform, an accessible platform for disabled people recently as well, so that they've got a fantastic view of the games. And rather than them be sitting on the track or really low down, they're in an elevated position, and we've got an escalator, a lift that can get them up to there, and so they've got a really good position to watch the games. So encouraging all that sort of thing, and we're looking, at things like sensory capability within the stadium as well, to see if we can do something there. So there's a lot of stuff to really try and make the club represent the community that we serve, and make it much more successful as a consequence. So that's really it, and trying to attract a lot more younger fans. COVID's been very difficult because we haven't been allowed to get the players into schools and youth groups and all that kind of thing. So we're currently looking at reactivating all of that activity, so that we can catch them young before they they find other sports, other activities that get their attention. So we'll be doing a lot of that in the next winter, to try and get more youngsters along, and we'll do lots of discounted offers to get them in the stadium, and hopefully get them hooked, as I was age 5. So because I think if you get them hooked and we can be reasonably successful, then we'll have them as fans forever, which is great.
Fans bring in other fans. That's what I've learned listening to sports doing this. So like you said, start them young, they bring their mates, everybody's having a good time. St Mirren win the SPFL, Scotland win the World Cup, John Needham gets a statue outside the home end.
What's not to like? Something for the locals to throw their pies at you.
That sounds like a weird tradition that may well in 50 years may happen. Going, it's tradition that the John Needham statue gets pelted with pies and we always win 3-0.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not your statue, but it might be.
I doubt it. But anyway.